Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. And now it's time to take a look at news stories making headlines across the globe today. Beginning here at home in Nigeria, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday assented to the bill that was amending the Deep Offshore and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contracts Act. Now, lawmakers passed the bill last month to amend the provisions of the legislation with the aim of shoring up Nigeria's revenue earnings. Under the law, which regulates royalties payable, international oil companies will now pay a flat rate of 10% for oil discoveries in fields that are deeper than 200 meters. Furthermore, the new legislation requires periodic reviews of production sharing contracts and introduces specific price-reflective royalty rates. Now, here to discuss the significance of the key amendment to this legislation and what it portends for Nigeria in terms of our revenue generation is the Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NETI, Mr. Waziri Adio. Mr. Adio, who we can proudly call one of our own, having worked in a senior editorial capacity for our sister outfit, This Day newspaper, for over 5 years, is also going to delve into the demand notice issued by the Nigerian government, asking the IOCs to cough up, by its estimates, $62 billion. That it says it should have accrued to the Federation once the price of crude oil exceeded about $20 per barrel. But before we go over to our guests, let's take a look at a short clip of the building of the giant Agbami FPSO vessels. Mr. Waziri Adio as well will then be on the show.
FPSO, that's a floating production, storage, and offloading vessel. So it's like a big ship without an engine. All the oil is produced up through that vessel, and then we store the oil in there just like a crude tanker, and then we offload that oil to export tankers that go deliver the product around the world. Well, the Agbami vessel's floating in the ocean, and then it's connected to the ocean floor by these flexible pipelines that go down to the seabed, and then on the seabed we have the wellhead, and so from there we then drill down there to the actual reservoir. The Agbami project took 10 years from the point of first discovery to when we actually started producing oil, and then it's another 20 years of production for its full life. So that gives you a sense that this is a real major investment that takes a long time to get this kind of energy to the public. Yeah, the Agbami project was a great thing for the Nigerian economy. We employed over 1,000 people. We had training of people all over the world. We created new capabilities in the whole economy.
Okay, so that was a quick look at the building of the giant Agbami FPSO vessels. And just in a moment, we will head over to our Abuja studios. But, Doctor, this is a huge landmark for Nigeria. This is an amendment that's been waited for quite a while. What's your take?
Well, I mean, yes, it's a landmark moment. It's a very big achievement for the Buhari administration. You recall that many Nigerians, including NETI, the organization that is led by our first guest this morning, had drawn attention to this. In fact, NETI did a report which it released in March 2019, trying to draw attention to the steep cost of inaction. That is the failure of Nigeria to review the production sharing contracts as agreed, as a matter of law under Section 16, subsection 1, and then followed up by subsection 2, of the Production Sharing Contracts Act. And here we are told that this looks like a case of, some officials of state refusing to do the needful. And as a result of that, Nigeria, over the years, from 2008, when the first review should have been carried out, up to now, had lost a substantial amount of money. Yeah. The federal government has put that at about $62 billion, but the NETI report, I think, has a lower figure of between 16.1 and 28.6. But when Waziri Adio comes on the program, we'll be able to ask him how these figures are computed, because in the NETI report, there was something about the computation of the cost. The question now is, now that the new act, has been signed into law by President Buhari, what follows, what's next.
Yeah.
Would the international oil companies end up paying the arrears? What will happen if they were to pay the arrears? That would be a lot of money.
Now, what are the consequences?
Or it is 62 billion. We hope that, as we pointed out when we first took this subject with Dr. Falibe, that the Nigerian government will explore the option of, entering into negotiations with the international oil companies, who had insisted that they were not party to the case that was determined on October 17, 2018, by the Supreme Court of Nigeria. That is the case AG Rivers and two others versus AG Federation.
Yeah.
And it was, the Supreme Court ruling that triggered, this development. And the National Assembly, we've seen the National Assembly cooperating with the federal government in making sure that the appropriate legislation is seen through. And the kind of commitment that we've seen, from the Ninth National Assembly on this particular matter just shows that, in fact, both the executive and the legislature can always work together and should always work together when national interest is at stake. At a personal level, I think it's a great achievement for President Muhammadu Buhari, his administration. And it is something, that those documenting his legacy can point to as one issue on which, government moved proactively. Its attention has been drawn to this particular problem through litigation and through the policy document prepared by NATI and its associates. Now, the question that some people have raised since this was published was that, why did the president go to London to sign the bill into law? One or two people have raised that issue this morning. I tell them that, that is immaterial. That will amount to trivializing the significance of this piece of legislation. However, they will still have pending the Petroleum Governance Industry Bill, which I think, may also help in further promoting our national interests and community interests in the oil and gas sector. When that bill was presented to President Buhari in October 2018, he withheld assent to it. I hope that now that this Production Sharing Contracts Act has been taken out of the way and has now become law, and it will be implemented, hopefully, then let's hope that they will also take another look at the Petroleum Governance Industry Bill and work on it, because it's also just as important as this Production Sharing